Yes. All right. Hello all. Thank you so much for taking some time this evening. I haven't introduced myself yet. Randy, thank you for introducing me quickly, but my name is Ashley Smith-Sabetti. I'm a program analyst here with DC Department of Public Works Office of Waste Diversion, and I'm honored to talk to you tonight about our food waste drop-off programs here within the district. And I think this will be potentially near and dear to many of you. In fact, you all may have already been benefiting from some of these programs we're going to talk about today for some time. So just a little bit about the Office of Waste Diversion. Of course, we are within the Department of Public Works, but the office was established in 2014 to implement programs related to the district's zero waste goals. And DPW, specifically the Office of Waste Diversion within DPW, we oversee and manage day-to-day the food waste collection and drop-off programs that you may have seen around the city. And just as a reminder, you can always check us out online, learn more about our office, please. We would love to hear from you too at zerowaste.dc.gov. Just as a point of reference, our goal for the Office of Waste Diversion and the Zero Waste DC plan is to divert 80% or more of the city's waste away from landfill and incineration. So today we're talking about food waste, and why is it so important for us to focus on food waste? Reducing food waste is ubiquitous in our life. We create so much of it, but reducing food waste is tremendously impactful. It makes up 20% of the residential waste stream, or it's a jargony term to say, household trash. That's according to a waste characterization study that was performed by DC in 2018. But nationally, food waste can comprise, you see a white screen, sound is fine, but you see a white screen. Hey, one moment, let me just stop sharing and reshare again, if that is the trouble. Can you all see this now?
Sorry, I can't, but I'm just listening. So.
Okay. All right. Are others also seeing a white screen? My voice is great. I would love for you all to see those. So there was a black screen, then it went white. Sound is fine. Is anyone else having trouble? We're going to try a different method so that it is not going to be Tom. Let's see here.
And there are a couple people in the chat who say that they can see it.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we might be experiencing a little difficulty on those specific computers and not sharing
Thank you
capability.
All right. However,
let's going to imagine what compost looks like.
Thank you very much, Tom. We'll just continue, and I'm going to follow up with the presentation. We also will have the recording, and we can go from there. So sorry for the interruption. All right. So, reducing food waste is impactful. It makes up a good portion of the waste stream. By the waste stream, I mean household trash. Nationally, food waste comprises as much as 24% of municipal solid waste in landfills, and that is a true waste. Indeed, food waste, when landfilled, it can become anaerobic, and that can generate methane gas. And methane gas is known as it is a very potent greenhouse gas. So we really want to make sure that food waste does not end up in a landfill. But that's more towards the the end of the process, more immediately, after you have enjoyed your meal and potentially put your food waste in a trash cart behind your home, the problems can actually start then. That food waste in an unsecurable trash cart can actually attract and sustain rodents. And that's something that we really do not want to proliferate rodent issues in the district. More importantly, if food waste is able to be captured and sent towards composting, we can make new soil. And a benefit of the DC area is that composting is inherently local. It is far more local than landfilling and incineration in the DC area. And we'll get into a little bit more of that. But just to touch upon the nutrient and food waste to nutrient cycle, here we have, it's a very simplified image of essentially, this is why composting is important. We can see the full circle. It's tangible. We experience it every day. We have food. It is ready to eat. The food that we had to prepare, we prepare and we consume. Hopefully we share it with others or even alone. But the leftover food scraps that we have and other organic materials, they can be source separated from the trash. And that is just another way of saying essentially, kept out of the trash into another container to direct it towards composting and anaerobic digestion, of which there are several facilities in the area. That material is ultimately composted. The compost is then applied mixed with soil. This is a very simplified version, by the way. Mixed with soil to help support, the healthy plant growth. And then healthy plants can grow more food and better food. Some of the benefits of composting, immediately, you may have a less smelly trash cart. That could also help to not attract as many rodents. Now, a common result for residents also is that you can often take the trash out less often if the food waste is not going into your trash cart. You can put your food scraps to good use through composting. You can make new soil from spoiled foods, help to fight climate change and support the local economy, all good things. But, more importantly and related to this presentation, what are DPW's food waste drop-off programs? So DC has had a food waste drop-off event program since 2017. And you all may be familiar with this. These are staffed locations with Zero Waste DC team members. They are often co-located with weekend farmers markets, and they have a vibrant following. As many as 10,000 monthly participants show up to the weekend drop-off events citywide. There are 12 of these events citywide with at least one in every ward. And to date, the program has recovered, actually, I believe it's more than 4.5 million pounds of food waste. Usually in, the solid waste industry, we usually talk in terms of tons, but, pounds are a little bit more tangible to, the everyday resident. And so 4.5 million pounds of food waste, this is a lot. It's been tremendously successful. But to expand upon this program and to kind of help fill in some of the gaps, this year, DC, in the last 12 months, but specifically in the last few months, DC has expanded the food waste drop-off program to include the installation of 31 food waste smart bins throughout the city. Now, these bins are very helpful. They have helped to bridge a gap, to fill in areas where they were not, readily, these areas did not necessarily have ready access to a food waste drop-off event. They're also available all day long. So if you're too tired on a Saturday or Sunday morning, or you're too busy to, drop by a food waste drop-off event, you can roll up to one of these food waste smart bins any time of day, and they're there for you. We focused their placement on high density areas where, where there was pedestrian traffic, near multifamily properties, really emphasizing on making them as accessible as possible. These food waste smart bins are lockable on purpose, to help keep rodents at bay and to keep smells, from escaping. But they are unlockable easily with a smartphone or easy to remember keypad code, which we have advertised at all times, listed at all times on our website, zerowaste.dc.gov/food waste drop off. And O'Neill, thank you so much for putting the link right there into the chat, so you have that ready. But what makes these smart bins smart is actually that they contain sensors to actually report fullness, so that we can keep track, as program managers, on how quickly they're filling up. And the bins actually can call for service once they hit a certain fullness threshold, which is very cool. It's something to be really proud of. So combined with the food waste drop-off events, in total, DC residents now have 43 food waste drop-off options that are provided by DC Department of Public Works. And that same link that O'Neill shared in the chat, it applies here. You can see the full list of all available options. They do not cover all single member districts within the city, but they cover a good portion. And so I highly recommend that you all reach out and take a peek and see, which ones are close to your to the area that you serve, the area that you represent. So far, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Like, it almost brings me to tears sometimes. People are so happy. And we have folks sharing on social media every single day. We even had some, folks highlight, by folks, I mean organizations, agencies, highlight the fact that the smart bins are available, and it was what they focused on for Earth Day, which was it was an honor. As you can see here, this is just one of the many emails that we've received. This one woman, Anna, mentioned, I just wanted to say that this is one of the best and most immediately impactful public works projects I've experienced in DC. The feedback has been very positive. The folks are really happy about their food waste drop-off options. So you may have some questions about, where does the food waste go after it is collected? There is a network of food waste processing facilities, composting facilities, anaerobic digestion facilities throughout the area. But the materials that are collected from the food waste drop-off events and the food waste smart bins are most likely going to the Prince George's County Organics Composting Facility. This is located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and if you're in Southeast DC, it's probably about 16 miles from our border, which in the large scheme of things, that's very close. That does not travel too far. If it were to travel for a landfill, it could travel up to 100 miles. If it were to be incinerated, depending on where you are in the city, it could go as far as 36 miles. So composting is far more local. Let's see here. I would say this is probably one of the most, burning questions is, how do I get started? And I like to say that, composting will be there for you when you are ready, but the first step is, first off, you're most likely producing food waste. if you're, preparing food at home, if you're eating out, there is a very high chance that you're producing food waste. And so a good way to get started is at home. And one of the easiest ways you can do is just to find a container. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fancy container. It can be a yogurt tub. It can be maybe you order some takeout. It can be a Ziploc bag. So just find a container that you can, keep on your countertop or keep in your refrigerator or keep in your freezer. And, as you're generating food scraps, as you're cutting vegetables at home, after you've finished a meal, if you've got leftovers, you can just scrape that amount into a container. Again, after you're finished cooking, after perhaps you're cleaning out your refrigerator, and if there's maybe some old moldy food or some leftovers that just are no longer as appetizing, but they cannot be donated, please just scrape it right into that container. Some of the materials that can be accepted at a food waste drop-off option include fruit and veggie scraps, salads. This is new actually in the last several years, but milk, cheese, eggs, dairy, meat, seafood, bones, shells. Essentially, it's not just vegetarian. You can add in these, you can add in dairy items, you can add in meat. Breads, grains, pastas, nuts, spices, cooked and spoiled and oily foods, all good. The hot dog you didn't finish, the pizza, you just cannot have another slice. That's great. The French fries are now too oily and no longer crisp. That's fine. The compost pile wants them. The compost facility will eat them. But also it's not just food, it's food soiled paper too. So if there was a plain napkin, if there was a paper towel that you use to wipe up water, please put that into your food scraps bin. Now, if you were cleaning around the house with that paper towel with chemicals, please do not. Please put that into the trash. If for a holiday you receive some cut flowers, all good. Please put that into the food waste bin, into your container for drop off at a food waste bin. It's all good, especially if it's just a bouquet of flowers, that may have dried. That's small. We want that. It's compostable. Some of the things that we do not want to go in the bin, and these would be considered a form of contamination, would be plastic bags, produce stickers, twist ties on the parsley, things, rubber bands. These are not necessarily natural. So please keep them out of your compost bucket. Composting is not a substitute for recycling. And if traditional recyclables end up into a food waste bin, that will be considered a form of contamination. And it could make it so that the entire load cannot be composted. So please keep keep recyclables out of your food waste bin. A special note, yard waste, perfectly compostable, but the food waste drop-off options are for food waste. And yard waste, DC residents, you can call 311, you can visit 311.dc.gov, and you can schedule a free yard waste pickup. Or you can drop it off at the Fort Troughton transfer station. This is important, not because it's not compostable. That's not the case. It's because the food waste drop-off infrastructure is limited and yard waste can be voluminous. Some folks have many questions about specific compostable or non-compostable items. The full list of what is accepted and not accepted is described at zerowaste.dc.gov/food waste drop-off. I also just want to take a moment to say there's some fantastic questions coming in in the chat, and we will get to them. So, you know, please do not hesitate to put a question into the chat, okay? Dropping off the food scraps, the two options right now within DC that are provided by DC DPW are the food waste drop-off events and the 24/7 smart bins. The drop-off events are accessible events. So if your residents reach out and say, you know, they're having trouble finding an accessible event, you know, the drop-off events indeed are accessible to those that are in wheelchairs. They're every weekend, they are year-round, and they're staffed with team members to answer questions, you know, maybe perhaps to help someone if they need some help. So, you know, and it's a place to be seen. I must admit, they're rather fun. And the 24/7 smart bins, again, they're available 24/7. You can unlock them with the MetroKey app. This is the MetroKey app you can actually download on, you can find it on Google Play. You can find it on the Apple App Store. And if you have a smartphone, there's a very good chance you can have the MetroKey app. But if you do not have a smartphone, or if you do not want to download another app, or you do not want to carry your phone with you at all times, that's great. There is an easy keypad code. We have it listed on our website, but for the year 2025, that code is 2025 pound. Again, that's 2025 £. And again, we have 31 of these bins located citywide. On our website there, you can find all of your options. John Johnson, who is actually in the audience today, he is the star of our latest video, and I really hope that you'll take a moment to watch. Again, everything is on our website here, but he did a great job describing how to use a bin, why to use a bin, you know, where does it go, and some tips, you know, introduces you and walks you around the entire bin so you can see what is on all four sides. You'll see that there's one side with a list of what is accepted in English. The opposite side, it's the same information in Spanish. And then you can go onto our website and learn just about and answer just about every question you could imagine. At the end of the day, you know, we definitely encourage people to rinse and repeat, please. You know, after you drop off your food scraps, you return home. Just a quick rinse, maybe with some soap and water in your container. You know, please reuse your container. Seldomly, we do have some folks dropping off their containers that they use to collect their food scraps into the bin, which may be a form of contamination, but you know, we're working on it. But please reuse your containers. It is possible to line your containers, and that may make cleanup a little easier. A bin liner that is compostable is acceptable. Just please look out for the, you know, BPI certified compostable logo when you do pick up those bin liners if you choose to participate in the program. And I know that we have seen many questions come in, and I'd like to start. And Randy, if maybe you could, you know, help me prioritize the questions that you think that have come in. And we have another hour, and you know, I don't want to leave a single stone unturned. If you've got a burning question, you know, please ask. And I'll do my very best to answer your questions. I also have Sarah Hoffman-Graham. I believe that John Johnson is here too. And we can work together. Randy, actually, would you mind letting me know where we should start with questions?
Sure. So We only have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
And Sarah already answered them.
Oh,
so-
wow. Okay. Well, I guess we can go and hang up the phone then.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't get very many questions, unless, you all were waiting for the presentation to be over, which is fine too. So yes, if anyone has any additional questions that were not already addressed in the chat.
I think we're having a little bit of conversation about DC code in the chat, and I would love to speak a little bit more clearly to that, if that would be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yep, go ahead.
So
Please.
Paula asked a question regarding whether the bins can be used for restaurants or other retail food outlets. And the answer is no. These bins are intended for residential food scraps only. And commercial entities like restaurants should seek, if they would like to do a food waste separation program, need to seek services through a commercial food scraps or composting composting hauler. There is a good point in the chat that from a policy lever's perspective, encouraging versus requiring have different outcomes. And that is true. At this point, DC code and DC municipal regulations do not require restaurants to separate food scraps. There are, however, a number of commercial food waste generating entities that are required by DC code to separate food scraps. These are entities that are very large scale and produce a lot of food scraps, and they've been phased in over a number of years based on certain criteria. Think universities with a large residential population that have cafeterias, hospitals, which have a certain number of beds that also serve on-site food and cafeterias, stadiums that have a certain number of seats. So those type of sort of large scale generators are being phased in over time in terms of the requirement to separate food scraps. But smaller entities like restaurants are not yet covered by that requirement. However, all commercial entities in the district, regardless of their size, or for-profit, nonprofit, small business, large business, all are required to have trash and recycling services. And so I think that was a point that somebody made in the chat very well, is that is a existing law, and therefore something that you can look for and expect in all settings wherever you live, work, or play is trash and recycling. There is an opportunity, sort of an open door in DC code. This would be Chapter 8, Title 8, Chapter 10, to potentially add additional designated entities to require food scrap separation in the future. That is not something that has happened yet. However, if that is something that is of interest to you, I encourage you to do some advocacy around that. Does that answer the kind of conversation that was happening in the chat? Did that help clarify any of what was going on?
Randy, you're muted.
Yes. I mean, it looks like it, yeah, pretty much answered.
If you have folks, if you have additional questions on that thread, please add them in. Add them into the chat here, and we can continue the conversation. We have
Commissioner Paul Edwards has a question. Should we press the council for a requirement for commercial establishments to separate food scraps?
I think if that is a requirement you would like to see, then advocacy at the legislative or executive branch is a good option. Yes.
Thank you, Sarah, for addressing that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I also, let's see. I saw a question, I think Ashley, you addressed it, but just to kind of hit it home, I did see a question about yard waste. What should people do with yard waste?
Please, 311. You can call 311. I believe it's option 5 for city services. And the menu should lead you to requesting a free yard waste pickup. The operator that picks up the line will give you details for where to set it out. But you know, yard waste is wonderfully compostable. But please just make sure that it's picked up via a yard waste request and not put into a food waste drop-off bin. And the next question.
So we have a question about trucking materials out to PG County. So
Yes.
I appreciate this is the question. I appreciate that PG County isn't that far, but it's still nuts to burn natural gas or to burn gas to get compostable materials to the suburbs. We really can't find a few locations in DC to store this stuff.
The store?
Yep, that's the question.
Okay.
So if you want to address sort of why the facility in PG County, I think that might be helpful.
So Prince George's County, the organics composting facility is a sizable commercial composting facility. It is large enough in order to accept the amount of material that is produced in DC today, but also could be produced by DC in the future. Not saying that it is impossible for us to find a location, but facility planning is a long process, a very long process. And indeed, it could take some time to identify a facility. I wish that I could speak to this more. But at this moment, I just want to, reiterate what a fabulous resource it is that we have so many local composting facilities that exist and potentially could be built in the future around the DC area. It would be very nice to see a composting facility in the district. And I think that Sarah, you answered a previous question very appropriately here. If this is something that you would like to see, I think this is something that you could help advocate for.
I also want to note a couple pretty significant differences between backyard composting and commercial composting, and why it might be important to have a commercial composting option. I think most basically, backyard composting is not feasible for a sizable portion of the population. That's just not going to be an option for most people, whether that's due to space, right? Not everyone has a yard. And if you do have a yard, do you have a big enough yard to process all of your food scraps? That gets tricky. Certainly a time commitment, right? Composting is good or good composting that's not going to attract rodents, that's not going to create smells, is a fairly intense time commitment, and you have to be maintaining that. And so we recognize that that is not a feasible option for a lot of residents in the district. Another difference between backyard composting and commercial composting is that commercial composting can accept a lot more variety of materials. So things like meat, bones, dairy scraps, eggshells. Eggshells are okay in backyard, but more heavy-duty paper products. Those are all things that are going to need a much higher temperature in order to break down into be rendered safe and not sort of create pathogens, so or attract rodents. And so it's really important that if we want to separate those types of food scraps, specifically animal products, that the option to send it to a commercial facility is available, because that is the safest way to process those food scraps into compost. Otherwise, those really can't go in the backyard and they would have to go in the trash.
Okay, we have a question from Commissioner Quinn. So I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm trying to fully grasp the yard waste component. His 16-year-old's never empty compost bin exploded last week after the tree that was holding it together was cut down. And what is spread all over his yard is a mix of food and yard waste. He cannot take the stuff to the drop-off bin, as that's the question. Would he be able to take it to the bin?
Tom, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a real thing to manage. Just to put this into perspective, the drop-off bin, the smart bin that may be near you, is a 64-gallon container. And that is enough for maybe a gallon of food waste here, a gallon of food waste there from different households. And it ultimately could serve up to, assuming it's a gallon per household that comes a week, 64 families. So it's a matter of capacity here. In this case, I might suggest if you're able to bag it up, the mixture of the food waste might be an issue because the yard waste facility, I'm not sure if they are able to accept food waste. This is a unique issue, and I think it's probably best if we connect on this a little bit later. Perhaps you can. I'll put my contact information in here, and we can discuss this tomorrow. Just trying to understand how much is there to manage here, because it truly is an issue of capacity. The food waste, if it's a small amount, if you just take 1 bucket a week, yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry, Tom, of course, yes. If you've just got 1 bucket of food waste to take per week, yes. There's a part of me that just wants to come and, help build another compost pile for you in your backyard. But if you have, further questions, let's take those offline, and please give me a call. I'll put my contact information in the chat. All right. So, so I'm curious, maybe by a show of hands, is how many folks on the line here have downloaded the Metro Key app? Has anyone downloaded it? O'Neill, I see you. My hand is raised. I'll just say I have downloaded the app, but I had better download the app. As a coordinator of the program, I see Tom, you've downloaded the app. Okay, if you have not downloaded the app, we're going to make sure that we put the link for the app here in the chat here, so that you can go ahead and download that. I want to say proudly that we have over 3,500 residents that have downloaded and registered with the app. And we're getting some feedback quickly, or I should say soon, on, of those 3,500 people that have downloaded the Metro Key app, how many of those are visiting the bins regularly. We already have as many as 10,000 or about 2,500 people per week using the food waste drop-off events. We're very interested to watch the adoption of the smart bin infrastructure through the city. I will say that there are some areas of DC where the adoption of the smart bins is less, and it's a shame. So if you have not found a food waste drop-off event or a food waste drop-off bin yet in your area, please take a moment, go to our website, find which one is closest to you, and maybe make it a little field trip with your family, or yourself. Take take a walk over and see, you know, just how far away it is. We're always accepting suggestions on where, budget, pending available budget. If we're to expand this program, you know, where could we site these bins? There have been several council members that have made videos and posted to their social media about their interaction with the smart bin, their interaction with food waste drop-off events. And I would encourage you, if you're active on social media, you know, being a leader in your community, you know, take a moment to learn about them. If you have any questions about them, you know, once you've encountered them, please do not hesitate to reach out. On the front of every single bin, there is an email address. And O'Neill, if you could be so kind to put the foodwaste.dropoff@dc.gov email address into the chat. There's an email address and a phone number on the front of every single bin. And you're encouraged to, you know, reach out if you see vandalism on the bin, if you see any damage, if there's maybe you know, a piece that looks like it could be maintained, you know, if you know, if we didn't catch it in time, you know, a fullness alert, please do not hesitate to reach out. Every single email about that goes to foodwaste.dropoff@dc.gov that comes to a shared inbox and the Office of Waste Diversion. We have several folks that are monitoring this inbox. I don't want to say 24 hours a day, but you know, we do sleep occasionally, but we are monitoring, and we do take all of the emails that we receive seriously. Let's see, Tom, you said, I've seen folks leaving compost in plastic bags. I think some bold signage on the bins should tell people not to do this. Indeed, yes. On the side of the bin, they're very bold. It's very bold. It's actually in bold text that plastic bags are not acceptable. And in fact, I believe that is the very first item. That is going to take some learning. There are some types of bags that are compostable, like a compostable bin liner, but it will say, you know, BPI certified compostable, you know, on the bag if it is compostable and acceptable in our program. But unfortunately, we have seen some produce bags that you might use to, like, if you're, say you're buying like a head of cabbage or broccoli at the grocery store, you might use a green tinted produce bag in order to purchase it. And we have been doing some communication and some, you know, thinking about how to expand our communication to help address this. But that could be something to keep in mind, that you know, just because you buy vegetables in a type of bag, it doesn't mean that type of bag is compostable. So that is there's still some education to do and some learning on that point. And I see, Tom, you mentioned that people are still putting plastic bags in the recycling bin. Unfortunately, yes, that is also a contaminant. Essentially, plastic film, like a dry cleaners bags or a produce bag or a plastic shopping bag, like this should not go in a recycling container or a composting container unless it is specifically BPI certified compostable. Let's see here. Are there any other questions regarding composting, commercial composting, backyard composting, use of the smart bins or a food waste drop-off event? I don't see any more questions coming in. Well, again, the email address to send your questions here. Yes, that's Randy, if you want to. We can, Randy's gonna take folks off of mute. So if you would rather verbalize your question rather than type it in, that is fine. And, oh, we have a question here from Jeffrey. Bags that say compostable are okay, right? Bags that specifically say BPI certified compostable are okay. Yes. Actually, O'Neill, would you mind finding a link to a BPI certified compostable label and maybe put a screenshot of that here in the chat?
Working on that, O'Neill. I
Thank
had the
you.
same thought, actually.
Oh, did you? Oh, you're okay. Sarah's on it. Okay, thank you so much. All right, I think everyone should be unmuted unless, of course, you muted yourself. But if you have any more questions,
I'm working on it now. Yeah, we do have one more question. Hold on.
Oh, Tom. Okay, we can talk later. That's a lot. That would be too much for a single bin. It would. But I think a new backyard composting bin is in your future. Yes, here's the label. So it doesn't necessarily have to have that specific certification number in the bottom right corner. Indeed, for all products to receive a certificate like this, they have to go through a certification process that is third-party verified, and they are issued a certificate number. So each individual item, I should say, each type of item that you may purchase, say if it's from, one manufacturer or another manufacturer, if they have gone through the BPI certified compostable process, they're going to have a different certificate number, but definitely look for this logo. Commercially compostable is absolutely acceptable in DC's program. Ooh, Jeffrey, this is a really, really good question. How about compostable plates, flatware, cups? At this point, we are saying food soiled paper, things like napkins, things like coffee filters. They break down very, very easily. And compostable plates and flatware and cups, sometimes they do not break down very well. So the advice that we have received from the composting facility at this point is just to be very simple with our instructions about food soiled paper. If it is thin and it is a paper product, like a coffee filter, right? Like a simple paper napkin, you should feel very confident putting it into a food waste drop-off bin. But we are not issuing too much advice or guidance on this point. There's also quite a bit of fluctuation in the market right now. And unfortunately, there is also quite a bit of fraudulent products that list themselves as compostable when they are not. So at this juncture, just we're keeping it very simple with food soiled paper. Now this is for DPW's food waste drop-off programs. This is not necessarily like composting writ large. If you have a hauler that say you work for a company, and that company or that business in DC has an organics hauler that says that those materials are acceptable, then you should follow that advice. But the guidance that we're offering right now is specifically for the food waste drop-off events and smart bins in the city. And Sarah, yes, good point. If there's a question about a specific compostable label, there are others like you may have seen it, TUV or TUV. That's another internationally, it's a popular certificate internationally, but it's not quite as popular in the United States, but we're seeing it more and more. And Randy has communicated that everyone can unmute themselves if they need. Paula, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, is
Yeah.
everyone able to unmute themselves?
I think so. Paula, you're saying?
Yes, I just first of all like to shout out to Ms. Thorpe. She keeps us informed. She's really been so helpful in this.
She
So
is.
I really want to give her flowers right now. What's the best way to move people to this? I'd really like to get everybody in my SMD to either start composting or doing something. So is there a roadmap? Is there a way to really interact with our constituents and, inform them how important this is and get them compliant?
Yeah, so, I feel like education, is, word of mouth, I think that one way that would be very effective is for, you to essentially experience it, document your experience and share it with your constituents.
Okay.
They look to you. And I would believe that they would trust you. So I think that is one of the best ways to begin, is, with yourself, and share your experience. As Sarah very rightly pointed out, backyard composting is not for everyone. I would even venture to say that it is not for more than 75% of the households in the district, because the housing stock, we have about 3 times as many multifamily dwellings as we have single family homes in the district. And so I would say that it is very likely that backyard composting is not going to be a good fit for everyone. And so food waste drop off could be. And, finding space in your refrigerator, your freezer, it takes a little getting used to. Starting a new program is not comfortable, but it can be exciting, and it certainly is a learning opportunity. As a follow-up and a thank you for attending, we are going to be sharing the link to our flyer that is in both English and Spanish. And it's a fantastic resource to share electronically or to print, to email. And in just 2 pages, it outlines, how to start, what to collect, how to drop off, and point you in the direction of more information. And so I'll share this flyer with you. You can share this with your constituents. And then I just definitely encourage you to, document your experience. Maybe bring a couple people along for the ride as you walk to the smart bin for the first time, or go to a food waste drop off. And, if you would like to, have a reason to gather, at a central point, Saturdays and Sunday mornings, that they're all year long, all across the city. There's one in every ward. So that might be a fun idea. But if you go to our website O'Neill had put it in the chat several times, and it's listed here on the last page of the presentation. There are some great pointers on how to get started. There are some tips and tricks, if something goes awry. And reach out to us for technical advice, at any time. And the video starring John Johnson is fantastic. Like it should be award. O'Neill did a great job editing that. You ought to receive an award. So I definitely would suggest that you take a peek at that.
Okay,
and I see there's another. Did another question come in?
Yeah, Tom has a question.
Okay, please.
Tom,
Tom,
you
go
should be
ahead.
able to unmute yourself.
So first of all, thank you for this presentation and this program. I was going to say this is tangential, but Ashley, you just kind of referenced this.
Yeah.
It seems like the way to get composting to take off in the district is to figure out how to get the many residents and multi-unit buildings to participate. So if we have a pending application in our ANC for a new multi-unit building, can we negotiate? Are there design things or programmatic things we should be asking for to facilitate composting in buildings as they open? I mean, do you guys have any guidance on that?
Ooh, that's actually that's quite a topic. It's not exclusive to DC. Essentially future-proofing designs so that there is sufficient infrastructure in place for even just adequate waste management. For trash, but also recycling potentially food waste. And Sarah, I think that you would probably be the best one to address this on architectural guidelines for new multifamily dwellings in the district. I'm still somewhat new to the office, so I'm going to point to my colleague here to
Yeah,
to help.
that's such a good question, Tom. And like kind of the previous conversation is that's not something that can be required of multifamily buildings at this point under current legislation and current code. However, I will say that one of the largest barriers that we see to multifamily properties implementing food waste diversion programs in their buildings is space. So their on-floor trash room is too small, or their loading dock is too small to have a trash bin, a recycling bin, and a food waste bin, or roll off or dumpster, right? And so, especially because food waste does not lend itself very well to be to use chutes. That's why trash chutes get stinky and dirty and smelly, right? Nasty is because of the food waste in the trash. And so it's that is not a super good management option, is building a third chute. Some buildings have tried. But I think the main thing that buildings run into is a lack of space. So for new builds, in terms of, I like the word that Ashley used, future proofing. One of the big things is simply asking, do you have the space to add a third bin in your trash room, or to have a third dumpster or toter, set of toters in your loading dock? Do you have the space for organics diversion?
Really good question.
So So it's not required by the DC code, but ANCs can negotiate MOUs if it's a PUD at least with an applicant. So we could ask for something like that, but there's nothing in the zoning or the building codes to cover it. So do you guys have any? I'm just trying to. It'd be good if
It's
we
some like
give
model
an applicant
policy.
some guidelines for what they would. So there would be two components if we were going to do this. There would be the space, and then there would be a program to deal with the materials, and that would have to be privately. DC would never pick up from a private building.
So multifamily, yes, commercial hauler service, commercial entities. So we know of a number of multifamily properties who are voluntarily running successful organics diversion programs. And so I could potentially put you in touch with a couple of those folks, those property managers, if you want to learn more about that. But also there are kind of best practices in green building codes. I personally am not enough of a building engineer to be able to quote those to you off my head, but I would be happy to follow up with some additional resources.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great if somebody would put together some guidance. I think if ANCs and developers kind of knew what you needed to, everybody could start asking for it, and developers, even if it's not required in the code, would have some guidance for what they would need to design into a building. I mean, I just looked it up. I see that you get LEED certification points for composting facilities. So that's buildings that are going for LEED certification cheap, are looking for cheap ways to do that. So yeah, if there was if somebody put together some guidance on that, I think that could be really helpful.
That's a smart idea. Yeah, thank you.
Very good idea. And Paula, your hand, I see it's raised twice still. I'm not sure if you still have a question or if
Yes.
that was from before. Okay, go ahead.
I do have another question. Can we work, is there a possibility, or has anyone ever worked with the commercial haulers to see if there is a technical solution to work with the architects and everyone to come up with a solution, a better solution? If space is the problem, is there a way for the commercial haulers to provide maybe a combined setup or something? Has anyone tried to work with them?
Yeah, like combining like trash and food waste. Is that what you mean?
Right, if there's a way to combine it in the same space, because it doesn't seem to me as though it would take up additional space. The actual entity that contains the food waste would take up additional space.
Oh, you're talking about like
So-
adding a third bin might
Right,
take.
is there a way to work with the trash haulers to see if there's a way to add a third bin without working within the constraints of the space?
Let's just say this: if there is a will, there is a way. And you know, the size of the bin, let's just say the adequate service is a factor of capacity oftentimes.
Mhm.
And capacity can be doubled by coming twice, right? By if you've got only enough space for a 30-gallon container, but you need 60 gallons of capacity, then you
Mhm.
could come 2 times, right? You could pick it up, say, on a Monday and on a Thursday, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, where there's a will, there is a way. And you know, there are real constraints out there, but oftentimes there is a lack of creativity to solve the problem. There also may be, you know, finances may be a real thing. That's a real issue. But you know, we are always here for technical advice. If say you're living in a building and you need to have a conversation with your property manager, you know, we're happy to help. We're happy to help with some, you know, talking points or to help think through an idea. We cannot necessarily negotiate on your behalf, but you know, our office is here to serve. So, you know, please reach out to us. I think we've received some, you know, great ideas so far. You know, and we're definitely going to look into them. But the combining of materials into a bin may be problematic, but you know, again, there is most likely a solution. Paula, did you have another question? I saw your hand was raised twice. Was
No,
something
no,
else?
that was
Oh,
my
okay.
question. Thank you.
Okay. Any others? Any others coming in? Oh, Tom.
So this has been a great presentation, thank you. But the more important question is, how are you going to get this information out more broadly? And I mean, I feel like I follow stuff, and I've seen the bin in my neighborhood, so that's why I know it's out there. But how are you guys? What's the PR campaign going to be to get everyone aware of these bins?
We have been doing some outreach. We have been in several community newspapers. You will eventually see our ad in Metro, hopefully, budget willing. Bus shelters, metro stations, on buses. We are also gearing up for a postcard campaign, especially for those that live within several blocks of bins. Again, the bins that are in place right now are not necessarily an end-all solution, right? Like we're hoping to expand the program in the future. And so as we do, we'll be doing more outreach, you know, to those areas where the bins are specifically located. We definitely encourage you all to, follow the Office of Waste Diversion as well as DCDPW on our social media channels. We are consistently posting about these topics. And then also we're incorporating, food waste into the presentations that we're doing in the community now. We've got a great team of recycling outreach specialists that, have been briefed on and are knowledgeable of food waste composting and the drop-off options that exist throughout the city. And, they receive questions from property managers as they're going and doing education. Sarah, I feel like Sarah is doing a great job of managing the recycling outreach specialist team. We are also going to be, depending on, leaders in the community like you all to help spread the word. So you'll receive those, the PDF flyers, and we would love it if you could share it with your constituents. Bring it up in conversation, and maybe start in your own household and share your experience. There is a communications plan. I can share that with those that, if you want to reach out and talk in a little bit more detail. We had a full communications plan that was approved by EOM, and I'd love to have another conversation with you all if you do have questions a little bit more one-on-one.
Tom, I would love to turn that question back on you, actually. So given what everything Ashley just said about where communication has happened so far, what are your recommendations for what we're missing?
Well, at the MOCRS, I don't remember if our MOCR made an announcement at the last ANC. I don't think he did, but the MOCRS could announce it. I go to the ANC meetings, so they're already there. They could announce it at all the ANC meetings. That would get the word out. In my perfect world, we get rid of this silly program where we're picking up the buckets and we have one of these every few blocks and everybody can walk them in their neighborhood and we're not burning gas. The other place I think would get a lot of buy-in is if you guys did something at the public schools. Kids kind of love this stuff, and kids could be the ones it's something kids could do in their own house and get their parents to do it. So that might be a way to get some grassroots growth too, I think, is going through the schools.
Mm-hmm.
This is a progressive city. I think once people find out about it, this is going to take off. But
yeah, no, I think you're right. I also think that truthfully, you are the best communicator for this program, right? Like we are putting together materials, and we are really going to be reliant on like the community sharing those materials with your networks. And so I think Ashley made a great point that one of the best ways to get people to know about this program is to demonstrate using it, and make sure that you're talking about it in your circles of influence. And so thank you in advance for doing that and helping us share about the program.
I will announce it at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That only gets 20 people.
Great.
And those 20 people will tell their 20 people, and we'll just keep it going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right. And, one of the beauties of that process is that it also gives us a chance to ramp up our service on the back end. The bins exist, they're out there, they're doing their job, they're available. But we have to keep up with demand. And I wish sometimes you might be, a fly on the wall watching our DC work cell phones just ping, 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 because we have so many alerts coming in that the bins are full. The bins are full. My goodness, we have to go again. The bin at Steed Park, didn't it fill up yesterday? Yes, it did. We have to go again today. At Eastern High School, the one on Capitol Hill, there's such a wonderful adoption of many bins. And we really want, from a program management aspect, I would love to be so overburdened with food waste. that I have to, send for composting. It would make my day. So please help us get the word out. Right. Oh, I see here. O'Neill has put for your viewing pleasure a link to the WUSA 9 interview. It was a great interview. John did such a great job. So please take a moment to watch that, share that. It's easily it's just I think maybe 2.5 minutes long. A great thing to share, to bring up, and to watch yourself. That's right. And if you do know of any reporters that, may reach out to you or, may come with questions about, what's going on in your ward, in your ANC, feel free to, bring up food waste drop off. We would be happy to talk to the media again and to answer questions and help promote the program. Okay, folks, this has been a good meeting and we're just at about 7:19. Oh, Tom, you says all of the TV stations are in or near our ANC. Oh, yes, that's wonderful. And O'Neill, you're putting some more links up. I appreciate that. All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we're going to come to a close. But again, if you think of one later, please feel free to reach out to us. The email address for the topic is foodwaste.dropoff@dc.gov. And I've had fun. I hope you did too. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with each of you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, and this recording will be, it was recorded, so you all will get a email of the transcript of this recording.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Randy.